Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of a tech session, a deep dive into Healy problems. Maybe there's one, maybe there's two, but we're just going to deep dive and see what we can find solutions for. And so, Mary, I'm excited to be able to facilitate whatever it is that you're bringing to the table because honestly, I haven't seen the list, but because I was call after call, so I haven't seen the list, but um, I accept the challenge and let's see if we can solve these problems. And I would love to do is be able to bring actual phones online with us, um, or people's problems online with us, and then be able to unpack those. So we can do that through the Zoom. Mary has sent me um, some error lists, and if we organize this properly, I think we could give a little bit more value. And one of the organizational outlines could be that we could start with a certain app, say the blue dot or the pink dot, whichever one you would like to start with, I'm open for. So let's, Mary, if you want to unmute, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute. And
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of have you as a co-host with me, if that's
Okay.
okay.
Perfect.
Okay. So where would you like to start?
I think that most of the people that are on, I'm going to make a big assumption. It has to do with the blue dot. And I know personally, I have 5 Healys, and it is randomness when the blue dot will work. I will either be unable to save the master key, or it automatically goes to save the master key. But then when I go back in to log in and try and start using, add new clients, because I finally gave it up. I said, let's just start. So I reset everything. Then I've been getting, and you and I were talking about this, Ken, that it's very likely it's the operating system with Apple getting a pop-up. And that was how this all started in our conversation, where it said, unable to save that, change, here are your settings that you need to take a look at. And you sent that to me. And I guess the good news, bad news was, the good news is I had all of those settings correctly established. And so that did not address it. So I
Okay.
think just in general, I'm going to say blue dot. And I know the people that are on that I invited and Renee did, many of them are looking at blue dot issues as well.
Okay, so let's go into that for a moment, and I'd like to start with the basics. And the basics are, we've got these smart devices. Healy was first initially designed to operate on a phone, all right, and not a tablet, not an iPad. And so the apps were written for that purpose. And the premise was that it would operate on an individual's phone. Now, what's the difference between a phone and a tablet or an iPad? The difference is the way that the operating system handles all the protocols, right? Including how it handles memory, how it handles, how the CPU is tasked with different in and out operations. It's different. The phone has other protocols, priority protocols. And with a phone, the priority protocol is a phone. Right? So anything to do with the phone, AKA phone calls, also interactions with the towers. All right. So how it's looking for a connection to the world, the outside world, which is a cell tower. All of that stuff is priority operations. And so the apps are written around those priorities. So understanding your smart device, and I'm telling you, I know none of us here have any challenges operating their smart device, but there's a lot of folks who are having challenges understanding a smart device and what it can do. Because when we get a phone, all of a sudden it takes pictures, and takes great pictures, because we have a 12 megapixel, 20 megapixel camera, whatever it is. It takes better pictures than our other camera. We start taking a lot of pictures. And if we have a lot of things on our phone, videos and pictures and recordings and stuff, it starts to consume the memory of the device. And that's another important understanding, that the memory that the device has on it is allocated for other operations. So if we have a lot of apps, we have a lot of photos, we have a lot of videos, we have a lot of stuff, then that memory gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And all of the apps are compromised, not just Healy. And the Healy apps are very communications hungry and they're CPU hungry. So they want maximum authorization to the CPU power. They want maximum authorization to all the communications channels. What are those? Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Okay. So knowing some of these principles, we can start by understanding that if you're going to run your Healy, it doesn't matter if it's a pink dot or the blue dot. Number one, close out all other apps just to start with. All right. Don't have a whole bunch of stuff running in the background. That's going to start saving you a lot of heartache and struggles right out of the bat. Number two, make sure you've got more than 75% of your memory available on your smart device, more than 75%. All right. How do you find that out? Go to your smart device memory, go into your settings. Here's another, you can find a YouTube on anything, right? Just Google, how do I figure out how much memory is left on my iPhone or on my Android, whatever. There'll be somebody that has a very famous YouTube that shows you how to do it. So, so go out there and find out how to operate your smart device. All right. Number three, what is your environment? Where are you? Are you around a lot of other Wi-Fis? Are you around a lot of other Bluetooth devices? Are you in proximity with multiple Healys? Know your environment, because that's going to have an influence on the quality of the operations of these, not so much the pink dot, right? We're talking about the blue dot right now, and it's going to be the one that has the highest demand in communications. Okay, so and number four, understanding that the blue dot is looking for communications in three ways. Okay, one is the communication of the Bluetooth. Okay, that's between the Healy hardware, the little Healy box, and your smart device. That's the only way they talk to each other, is through the Bluetooth signal. Number two is the app's interaction with the Healy. The app itself has got commands and requests that it does with the hardware. And number three is the connection to the cloud, right? That's going to be involving your Wi-Fi. Now, it's not always 100% necessary. So in fact, we can run the blue dot quite often at a certain point without Wi-Fi, without cellular data, without any interaction, because the information is already loaded into your app, right? And so the app is the one that's communicating with the Healy, but it won't survive without a Bluetooth signal. There's no way for any of the Bluetooth or the blue dot functions to operate without a proper Bluetooth signal between the hardware and the app. So most of the failures, I'm going to say at least 90% of the failures of the blue dot have to do with the Bluetooth interaction. Okay. Another basic understanding before we get this, these are just basics I want you guys to understand before we get into some of the specifics. Another one of the basics is that the Bluetooth is what's called a BLE, or a Bluetooth low energy. BLE means that it is a 2.4 gigahertz signal like any other Bluetooth on the market, but it's a very low energy 2.4 gigahertz signal. Low energy meaning it doesn't transmit very far. When we're looking at EMF interaction or EMF influence on any cellular structure, we're looking at how much power it's being pushed with. So how much watts of power that a particular radio signal is being put out. So you've got some of these AM and FM radio stations that put out hundreds of thousands of watts of power so that their signal can go miles and miles and miles. Okay, we're talking in the micro amps, right? Or the microwatts, very, very small energy. In other words, almost ambient energy. What does that mean? Like the amount of energy that your fluorescent lights put off, the amount of energy that your computer screen puts off, right? So this Bluetooth signal doesn't have a lot of energy. So it can be influenced or affected or lost very easily. So the maximum range this guy has between your smart device and the Healy is 32 feet. 32 feet, right? Now, my house is longer than that, bigger than that. I can be in the other room and no signal. So you got to start taking those things into account. And that 32 feet is open line of sight. So if you're going between walls or outside the house, any of that kind of stuff, you're lowering the range that has. So those are some things I want you guys to understand as principles so that we can start eliminating some of these communications issues. All right, now let's dive into something specific. Let's see. We can talk about master key stuff. If you want to talk about master key stuff, because the master key protocol changed a while back. The master key is now assigned to a user, right? It was assigned at one time to a Healy, but it's now assigned to a user. So your login credentials, your email and password are what actually logs in and allows you to generate a master key. If you have changed your email in your back office after you purchased your Healy, if you've changed your password in your back office after you've purchased your Healy, then there may be some disconnects, some issues when you try to first initially log in to your Healy because it still has the old information. And I've had this over and over again. People have to log into their Blue Dot app with their old credentials, right? And get that to work. And then you can change that information within the app. You can do some changes in there. But the initial one, when people are failing, there's not just one reason for that. So so let's try to understand some of the global principles. When we are first logging in and starting our Blue Dot app venture, it asks if you have a Healy, right? And that comes up. The Healy comes up. We are asked to agree to the terms. We do those things. Then we're asked to log in. All right. In that login process, when we put in our username and password, there are also 3 distinct allowances that we have to allow. And those are those little, what look like a little slide on your screen, but they're actually, you don't slide them. If you try to slide them with your finger, they won't work. They're literally just a tap. There's a tap activation. You tap, 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 all 3 of them come on. Now you can log in. As you log in, what's happening in the background is that your login credentials are then now through the app going to the cloud and looking at what you bought. They're looking at your account to verify your purchase. If that purchase has not been verified, if something happened on corporate side, the activation wasn't valid for some reason, there's the first stumbling stone. It's not going to work. It's going to stop right there. It's going to give an error. The errors vary from not authorized. I mean, it'll just say you're not authorized to failed, just failed, right? So, and then of course, then we start thinking that there's something wrong with the Healy or our connection or all the other stuff. In reality, it is something that corporate has done or hasn't done. So another principle there. If things are operating properly, you're going to see one of 2 screens next. It's going to either say import master key or save master key. Those are 2 distinct. I want you to write this down. 2 distinct things about this: import master key or save master key. All right. These are going to tell you what's going on. If it says import master key, it's probably not activated, right? Your system is probably not activated by the factory. All right. because it's not actually going up to the cloud and seeing any account information. It's bouncing it back to your cell phone or your smart device, saying, look on the smart device for the master key because it's not up here. Okay. That means it also thinks that that particular Healy has already been initialized on some other device. And so when it says import master key, it's looking for a master key somewhere that's been stored by you in the past. Okay. It doesn't mean that, oh, okay, this is how I activate my device. I have to import it from the cloud or something like that. No, it means it thinks the app is thinking that you have already loaded this device on somewhere else. You've already generated a master key. You've already done some of the first steps, and it wants you to produce that file for it. All right. So that's kind of a key piece of information. If you get that and you've got a brand new Healy, brand new, first time ever activating, and you get the message, import master key, there's cause for pause and reevaluation to find out, okay, I'm not activated. Something's not right. I got to call my upline. I have to call Ken. Well, wait, no, don't call Ken, but I have to get this figured out, right? So that's number one. The second message you see where it says save master key, that's the right protocol for an initial startup. It'll say save master key. And at that point, you need to choose where you save it. Don't just save it in your email. Okay. People are sending this to their email and they're thinking that they're great, and that's fine. And then all of a sudden they get a new phone and they want to reload the apps and they think that that master key is saved, but it's not on the smart device. The new smart device they just got, it's not in the file. It's in their email. Well, they see their email on their smart device and they think, well, but the master key is right there. It's actually not right there. It's in a server somewhere, wherever your email is held. It's not on your smart device. So in order to have a file on your smart device, just like a picture, you've got to save it within the file structure of your smart device. Depending on if you're iOS or Android, there's a file system that you can save that to. So when it's saying save master key, save it. You can email it to yourself. That's fine. If you don't know how to do anything else, that's at least a safe spot. But you're going to need to figure out how to save it to your smart device. All right. And that's, again, there's a YouTube on that, right? So you can go and figure out how to do that. That initial message, save master key, when you say, you know, you say yes, you're going to save the master key, it's going to give you some options. And the options are going to be to email it or to text it or to messenger it or some way. I recommend everybody I talk to is to save it on their smart device first, right? If you don't know how to do that and you weren't prepared for that, then do what you are prepared for in that moment, because you don't want to skip this step. Don't panic. Just do what you are prepared to do. And if you're prepared to email it to yourself, you know how to do that, then do that. Okay. So make sure that when we're coaching people that, that they don't panic, they don't skip over that, but they do perform something they're prepared to do, whether it be email it to themselves, text it to themselves, whatever it is. Because when it sends that file, it's going to send a file. It's not going to send a bunch of code. That is, but it's within that file. So we're going to send that file, and it's going to be a .json file. And that's unique because that's what the app is looking for. It's looking for a very specific extension. And once you have that file in your email, you can forward that file anywhere. You can copy and paste it. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. It's a file. So those are the two conditions: the import master key or the save master key. And those two pop-ups that come up in the sequence are going to be very, very informative as to what's going on in that present moment with your app. Okay. Mary, let's get to maybe one of the problem areas that you want to cover, so we can unpack that a little bit.
Okay, so I know, let me just read off because these are some of the same issues that I've had. All right, bear with me. I'm just reading through some of them in here. Lots of questions.
You know, I want to, while you're looking at that, Les says something that they bought a Tab A, Samsung 8 Tab A, and can download the test master key on it, but it will not activate or open. That's because the test master key, it's the email, the credentials for the test are not valid. When you get the master key, the test or sample master key, we're going to look over some of the heads here. I mean, I just want to address Les real quick. The login credentials are changing because there's too many on example, or it's called sample number 1 at test dot whatever it is, right? I think we're up to sample number 5 now.
Oh.
Yeah. So your login credentials, instead of that number 1 or the number 2, if number 1 doesn't work, put the number 2 in there. Same credential, same everything else, but just to put a number 2 in there. If that doesn't work, go to number 3. That doesn't work, number 4. That doesn't work, number 5. Until you get one to work. It will work. It's just that number 1 is overloaded, so it's dead.
Thank you. That's good information, because that I use that as a Band-Aid for a little while, and then it stopped working.
And that's because of login credentials, not because of the master key.
Okay. All right. That's good information. So here, let me, this is an issue that I think a lot of us are having. Can't sync to the cloud, and the data get it. And I'll read one of them, and it's from Dawn. Get an error message. There is not enough storage. I've heard this from a number of people. Also, is there a way to back up our data to our cloud in case we lose the data on the Healy cloud?
It's a great question. And the answer is no. I'm sorry. That's the short answer. Here's why. Because client information is confidential. And in order for us to have a MSA certification or Medical Security Act compliant, we've got to have a certain protocol, or Healy has to have a certain protocol in which they safeguard all the data. Okay. So all the client lists. Now this is also including all the lists. So clients and the lists in which were generated by scans or analysis, because those scans and analysis are HIPAA regulated, right? I mean, essentially we're looking at some security protocols that we have to adhere to. And when you do an analysis on someone, it's psychological, it's emotional, it's energetic, it's very complete. And so it's handled as if it were a medical record, and it's kept in the Healy cloud only. And they would rather it be deleted than compromised to someone else. So you will lose those clients and that data in deletion, in the ether, as opposed to it being saved or mimicked or copied anywhere else. So short answer, no. Long answer is what I just said.
Okay, I just got a message, and I've experienced probably most of these issues as well. So there's a white screen in the Blue Dot app. It's gotten better. But
okay, so one of the things also, you mentioned a not enough storage. I want to address that real quick. I kind of skipped over that. I'm sorry about that. The not enough storage thing, one of those, now, when we load the apps, you can load these apps at any time. You can go to your app store, whether you're Android or iOS, and load these apps on your smart device anytime. But they're just skeletal structures of the software. They are not populated with anything. They're just some windows that you can look at. In fact, you can't even get past the first screen within them if you try to open it. They're just skeletal structures. The entire organism has to be built from your account, right? From the cloud. It's all done from the cloud. So the amount of storage for the app, just to load the app, is hardly anything. But the amount of storage on your device to populate the app, now all of a sudden we're adding all of the various lists, all of the various. You've got 364 different homeopathic remedies. You have 120 Healy program analysis. All of that has to be loaded or populated into the app. So the memory consumption grows, and it knows that. So take a look at the smart device. Is that a function, like I mentioned before, that the memory, the amount of allocated storage on the device is less than 70, or it's been consumed more than 75%? We have to look at those kind of things. So I want to address that storage thing. The next thing is the white screen. The white screen is always 100% a communications problem, always. And well, so, okay, what communication? Well, the communication in a couple of things. One could be the communication between the app and your smart device. In other words, the screen, what you see on your smart device is a command. It's a command from the software of the app. And the app says, hey, screen, show this text, this verbiage, this picture, this color. Do what the app is telling the screen, or I should say through the CPU, the screen to display something. And it's just a bunch of pixels, right? And if there's a compromise between the app and the CPU of the smart device, the default is always static, white. Okay. Just like when you cross your legs and your foot goes to sleep, right? That's static. It's static information from the nerve endings of your foot, because the communications have been cut off in the nerves to your brain, and the default is white noise or static. How do you think that we engineered software? It's from our own nervous system. So the default is going to be static, aka white screen. That's one condition only. Another cause of it is so that's a compromise between the app and the smart device. The other one is a compromise in communication with the Bluetooth, right? So it's that signal. It's always communication, but the signal between the Bluetooth and the smart device being corrupted somehow. How can it be corrupted? Well, you can be too close or you can be too far away. I just say, 12 inches away, you're 100% good. If you got your smart device on the table and you're sitting there with your Healy clipped to your shirt, you're fine. You get up and walk the other end of the house, you're not fine. All right. So the next piece, like I said, it's always going to be communication. The next one could be Bluetooth communication. And thirdly, the communication can actually be the app itself that did not understand the information that did come from Healy. So Bluetooth sent information to the app tried to decipher it and display you something. So what's the cure? The cure is to reestablish a proper Bluetooth signal first before you restart the app. Now you can just restart the app. Sometimes that cures it. It might cure it 30% of the time. Great, you're done. But if the cause is because of the Bluetooth integrity, resetting the app over and over and over again is not going to do it. The only way to reset the Bluetooth integrity is to shut the Bluetooth off on your smart device in the settings. Go to settings, shut the app or the Bluetooth off, and then back on. Let that recycle happen. Now, what's going to happen is your Healy Bluetooth signal is going to stop. The blue light's going to stop flashing, right? So you're going to have to go back and reestablish connection. I want to give a very clear understanding about how the sequencing and connection works, so that when we encounter a problem, most of the time when we encounter a problem on an app, we shut the app off and back on. We look and the app is working. Well, that app happens to be maybe our calculator, or maybe the app is a photo editor app. Whatever it is, the app is living on the phone, on the smart device. It's not involving any exterior hardware or communications. So resetting the app on your smart device simply resets all the communications modalities with your picture files, with your screen, with whatever. But with Healy, we also have to deal with the exterior hardware that's part of this app. So I want you to understand the sequencing. This is important because I think that we can eliminate a lot of other problems in the field with sequencing. If you get a white screen, first thing you do is shut off the app and shut off your Healy. Turn them both off. All right. Next thing you do, go into your settings and turn your Bluetooth off. All right. You want to go to another step further and really clear the cache within your CPU. Turn your smart device off. Turn it off. And I know this could be a pain in the butt, right? But if it would eliminate you having a white screen over and over and over, it's worth it, right? Okay, then next step, turn your smart device back on. Then turn your Healy on. All right. Then turn your Bluetooth on in your app or in your smart device. Now what we've done, we have now created what's called a handshaking. So Healy, the hardware itself, is looking for the app. And when it's looking for the app, when the app is not turned on, then the Healy starts to lose some of the communications already right out of the chute. So the app needs to be turned on first. I mean, the Healy needs to be turned on first, and then the app, and then that communication can start to solidify. So if the app is turned on first, then the handshake is backwards. The Healy wants to see, when the Healy's turned on, it wants to find the app itself. It doesn't want it to be the other way around. It wants to find the app, create the solid communications, and then turn on its own Bluetooth. It wants to do it through the app. Okay, so that sequence again, if you compromise, shut down the app. Now, when I say shut down the app, I want you to understand the difference of how to shut down an app as opposed to just close it. Hard closing an app is different on an iOS than it is on an Android. On an Android, at the bottom of the screen, you've got a triangle, a circle, and a square. The square is your setting screen. You hit that square, it's going to open up. It depends on which device you have, but that's how it's going to show you your apps, and you can swipe them up, right? The swipe up function still works on an Android, but you have to find all those apps and swipe them up to actually hard close them. In an Android, that swipe up function is not actually what's called a hard close. When you swipe up an app, and let's say that there were some functions that were compromised between the CPU and the app. In other words, something to do with the screen, something to do with the Wi-Fi connection or the Bluetooth connection. When there's a compromise on an Android with an app and you swipe it up, a lot of those settings go with that, and they're still faulty. When you swipe it up, they go with it. Some of those incorrect settings go with it. So the only cure for that is what's called a hard close or forced close, depends on your device. Forced close, and that's done through your settings. You actually go to the app itself, and there's a command that's called force close. And in the Android, you force close it. What that does is it takes that app and shuts it down to its original settings. It's like deleting the app without deleting the app. Okay. You don't have to reload the app. So this is a better way to do it on an Android if you keep having reoccurring problems. I'm only saying if you have reoccurring problems and you can't figure it out, you're pulling your hair out like me, you can't figure it out. Then do this function. It's going to help Now on an iOS, different story. When you double click the home button, swipe the app up, that's actually a forced close or a hard close. It resets everything back to original, and you're good to go. If you don't have a home button on your iOS system, there is a different swiping function. Look it up on YouTube. You'll figure it out. You can actually even put a virtual home button if you like that on a device that doesn't have that home button. Anyway, look it up on YouTube. It's doable. All right. So the sequence again: hard close the app. Turn off the Bluetooth in your settings. Turn off the smart device. Turn off the Healy. Now we're at ground zero. The next thing, turn on the smart device. Turn on the Healy. Turn on the Bluetooth, and then turn on the app. So the turn off sequence and turn on sequence, right? And then you'll see the handshake start to happen between the Healy and the app, the Bluetooth all the authorizations, and that comes on. That's going to help a lot with that white screen. Okay. Hopefully that unpacks the white screen thing. So what I encourage you to do is test that theory, go through those protocols. If you still get a white screen, quite possibly you have a compromised app if it's every single time. Now this is if it's every single time. If it's intermittent, if it's more than 30% of the time that you get a white screen, then it's probably a compromised app. Then delete the app. Okay, that's the last resort. People are deleting the app and resetting their Healys and all this kind of stuff. That's actually a last resort. It's working, but we can do some of these other things in sequence and cure it. Okay. What else?
I think, and I've heard this from quite a few people, the memory, the storage. And I think I sent you a screenshot of that, Ken, through Messenger. I was going to send you a bunch, and I thought, I don't want to inundate you with all this, but I've gotten it, and I know a number of other people have. So it's just saying there's no storage available, no capacity to store.
So what the error that she's talking about is it says that synchronization failed. Please see the details. And below there's some details. It says it's not possible to connect to the cloud server, insufficient storage action, which in parentheses is set for section client failed because the storage limit was exceeded. So we've had probably more cloud access issues with this particular cloud in the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 months than ever. And the reason is because we're getting a lot of folks. We're over 150,000 members with Healy, which is a small number, right? But the point is that Healy has have to update and change the way that the cloud is accessed. And the way they're doing that is through the signaling frequency, so that more people can access the cloud simultaneously, and there's information that's being sent in packets, in bits and pieces. And so a lot of times the cloud access is going to give you this error because they're just, basically the app is not able to get the information from the cloud, and it's looking for some default error to give you. Just like when we say, normally a professional will caution or will err to the cautious side. They'll always tell you something to protect you more than they will what your limits are. So here is a message, an example of a message that is chosen from a group of messages based on one of the failure causes. And one of the failure causes is because of the access to the cloud. But it's got other things listed here. The most relevant part of this error message is the access to the cloud. Not possible to connect to the server cloud. That's the most relevant piece of information. And that right there gives you the biggest clue. Or just like I told you earlier, there's two messages you get, either save master key or import master key. This is a clue. This clue says that the storage or the cloud is either not accessible because it's broken, it's down right now, the server is being worked on, whatever Germany's doing, or whatever the load is implying, or your connection between, say, your Wi-Fi and the access to the cloud is compromised. It's still, I'm telling you, everything boils down to communications. I mean, it's always boiling down to communications. So when you get this error, what's the solution? The solution is to, again, how many apps are running in the background? What's going on with your smart device? Check that first. Number two, what's your environment? Are you connected to the Wi-Fi? Do you have a good Bluetooth signal? Is there interference? Is there other devices that are hogging Wi-Fi signal or bandwidth? What's going on in your environment, right? So take a look at those things. Solve those things, and you can even switch off Wi-Fi, because sometimes switching to your data on your carrier might be a better bandwidth than the Wi-Fi you're connected to at the moment. Remember, even though you may have awesome Wi-Fi at your house, what's on that trunk in your region, in your neighborhood, whatever that load is, may not still be giving you the bandwidth that you're expecting or used to. I have it all the time. I have students in my house that they're at school all day, right? Plus I'm sitting here doing YouTubes or doing Zooms and stuff. Video consumes a lot of bandwidth, and my entire neighborhood has school kids. So everybody's accessing it. So we have to not blame things on the Healy all the time. We have to look at our environment, what's going on in the peripherals around the support structures of Healy. So, so that message, cloud access, Wi-Fi, or I should say data connection, and Bluetooth. Okay. We've got to get those solved and change the parameters of those. Don't just redo the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Change the parameters, right? So when you get that message, it says cancel or repeat sync. Don't repeat sync. Cancel. Go and check. Make sure you got everything in the background shut off. Make sure that that your distance between your two devices are adequate. Get off of the Wi-Fi and see if your LTE or 4G or 5G network is better, right? It might be. And then try it again. Okay.
Can I have a question. So if I understood you correctly, hopefully I did, that the cloud storage issues, that's a Healy issue currently. And
well, you're adding two things right there. You're adding the word cloud and storage. They're two different two different things. Cloud access is very significant. Storage issues, that's an added possibility within this failure, right? Not that is the failure, it's a possibility. So these are saying check this, and then try again. Number one is almost always is the cloud. But if that particular individual's device has inadequate storage, if you've got a 16 gig phone and you've got 15.5 gig consumed, you're not going to be able to do many things that you want to do.
Okay. I think I understand that. And I'm going to ask, there was someone that was very specific about that issue. So I have a more general, which of course has to do with me, but so would I be best served to, which I have reset, I keep adding clients and then I have to, because I'm unable to get into the residence. Would I be best served to literally go through this whole process, which I have done, but there's a couple things very transparently I will tell you I have not done as good a job as I'm going to do now. And the Bluetooth is it. And I was talking to someone last night who said a lot of the issues, that's it. So if I'm going to start from scratch, reset all my Healys, they're all the same email, all the same password. Could you walk through that? Because that might be a good troubleshooting issue for those of us who are like, okay, let's start from scratch. I want this thing to work. I love this thing, as crazy as it makes us sometimes, just to start fresh and go from there.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I see a question real quickly I want to address in regards to communications that Jonathan is asking about in rural areas. And so, you know, out in the country, or, you know, in less inhabited areas, that is an issue with bandwidth. Bandwidth can be a very distinct issue in rural areas. And I've had to have people come in from the country, and I've walked people through the setup of their Healy at a coffee shop, you know, where the bandwidth is better because they couldn't do it. Or they've had to drive to a certain area where they had the LTE network, you know, they were able to log into LTE and not just 3G because it's about speed. It's about speed. The app will time out if it takes too long for the packet transfer between the cloud and the app. So it will time out and fail. So that's a key thing. Rural areas are one of those issues, and sometimes you have to drive in to town to do your sync process, your syncing, which means your client list, your data lists, all that kind of stuff is synced to the cloud. And sometimes to if you have to delete things and start over, your narrow bandwidth isn't going to do the job. So remember, like I mentioned before, the apps themselves are skeletal structures until the syncing process or download process from the cloud happens. And all those packets of information are loaded into the app. And that's a lot of data. And so if it takes too long, or if in transmission, the Wi-Fi bandwidth goes and some of that information is compromised. Now that's a technical term. So that's a joke. Anyway, if it's compromised, the information, if it's not integrous, well, it'll kick it out. And when you lose part of your translations, because part of the packets are the translations, and you know what I'm talking about when you've done a scan, there's those enormous amounts of translations to find out what best serves you, right? That all gets loaded into the app. So that's a key issue. And Healy is working on, trust me, they're working on completely revamping these apps, as well as the way that it accesses the cloud, all of that stuff. Because why? Well, because we're having these problems and we're feeding these problems. They didn't see that initially, right? Healy has grown, especially since the launch of the United States. The US is the biggest market in the world and the largest load and the biggest demand. In other words, the ones who need the most babysitting, because we push the envelope. Right? We do. We push the envelope. Now we want our Tab A. Now we want our mini iPad. Now we want everything, and we want it right now. So this is stressing the development of Healy, but they're up for the challenge, and it's us that's feeding them information to fix it. So just know that we're going to have to, as the field, we're going to have to adjust our operating systems a bit so that we can create success in the moment for us. What's that mean? Sometimes it means going to the coffee shop, All right. And getting on Zoom calls like this. Okay. So, so let's get back to the process you asked again, Mary. If you have multiple devices, I know a lot of people are doing that. They have multiple devices. What do you do when you have multiple devices? Now, man, now we're getting into there's a lot of nuance, a lot of little niches around how multiple devices interact with the app. Because you can have one Healy, and well, you can have the app loaded on 100 devices, and one Healy can actually interact with 100 devices. But when you start having two Healys interacting on the same device or multiple devices, there is imprinted information that is sent every time Healy connects to an app, no matter what app, what smart device, no matter where in the world. When Healy is connected to an app, Bluetooth or the blue dot or pink dot, there's distinct information imprinted from the hardware to the app. Okay. So now when we're switching from hardware to Healy to hardware to Healy, but the same app, remember when that handshaking happens between the Healy hardware and the app, there's a transfer of information. And the Healy's going to go, wait a minute, that's not my signature. Who's that? Who's in my house? Right? The app is its house. It needs that handshake. And so it's going to wonder, well, who's in my house? I don't know who's in my house. So it's going to need to re-clear the app of the old inhabitant and reestablish with the new inhabitant, the new hardware. So when you're switching from hardware to hardware with one app, there's handshaking and there's residual information left from the last guy that was there. Okay. So this is why there's some challenges when people are switching. And this is why people have multiple smart devices allocated to one hardware.
I do. Yes.
That's a good idea.
I wasn't so smart. It just accidentally happened that way. So, okay.
It's a good idea. And if you are, I'm going to tell you where the biggest struggles are with iPads. Sorry.
What I got, unfortunately, like most of us.
I know it. I'm sorry.
No,
That's just the way it is, because in the owner's manual, it says iOS 9 and above as an operating system. iPads need 11 or above. Okay. And that's that's not clearly stated. So it's 9 or above for a smart device, a phone device, or 11 or above for an iPad. So for tablets and in terms of Androids, that's actually 5.1 or above now. It was 4.4. It's 5.1 or above with the phone, or get this, depending on device for the tablet. Okay. Now, I don't say that as a joke. I just say that again, like I said, we're trying to push the envelope, and in Healy, every time a manufacturer comes out with a new model, the new operating system, a new processor, Healy has to get one of those, buy it, bring it in, and test it with their hardware and their software, and then write code to make it work every single time. So my advice, if we go back to the basics, you can get a used smartphone. You can get one at a pawn shop. You can get one from your classified ads. You maybe have some laying around the house. You don't need to have it active on a phone number. All you need to have is access to the Wi-Fi, right? So you can have an old phone that no longer has a phone number, but will operate on a Wi-Fi and work your Healy just fine. It'll work your Healy just fine. And that's a very inexpensive way. And I recommend, I know the tablets and the iPads are bigger, easier to see. Well, I'm the kind of guy, when I'm asked to the table to solve a faulty triggering mechanism on a nuclear weapon, I get very simple. Very simple. So we got to get simple.
Yeah.
Okay. So how can we expand on that success for you, Mary?
So, no, I think I need to step back after all of this, and I'm going to go through everything that you've talked about. I do want to ask you if you can unmute, or she can unmute herself. I don't think I mean, there's been a lot of questions. Here's something else. There have been a number of questions about how to use individual programs, and there is content that Ken has put out. There is content in our back office, that will help you. And I know there have been a number of people that are saying they don't really have an upline. They don't have anybody to help them. What I would do is, and maybe Ken, you can reference you have a YouTube page, and the content that you have put out is extremely helpful, and has helped me with a number of issues. We all have a lot to learn. I'll be the first one to state, even though I don't put it out to the universe, I love technology. Technology is going to help me. But I know there's quite a few questions on here about individual programs. So we're not going to necessarily address that right now. But what I wanted to do is, and I think this is it's a chronic issue for quite a few people. And I don't know if I've explained or asked the question. And I think, Dawn, can you unmute yourself, and why don't you pose the question to Ken and see if he can address that for you.
Sure. Hi, Ken. Again, going back to that storage issue, I guess what I'm not understanding, because again, you saw the error message that I received, and you're saying that we're running out of storage on our device. So I have a tablet, I have a phone, an Android phone and an Android tablet. My tablet has literally nothing on it. I bought it specifically to use for the Healy. And I'm also getting that same error message that I can't sync to the cloud, and there's a storage issue, and set the client, blah, blah, blah. But my question is, as we continue to add client data, even if we keep, keeping our say I keep my tablet literally clean, but as I continue to add client data, I'm going to run out of storage anyway. Correct?
Well, that's a great point. And so the error message, I would speculate that it's more to do with the communications with the cloud as opposed to anything to do to storage. Because like you said, you have a tab A with nothing on it. So it's not a hardware storage issue that we're talking about that I've been referring to. The reason I refer to that is to make sure that people are aware of that. So when you get a dedicated device like you did, it's clear, it's clean, it's got lots of room. There's not going to be a problem in regards to storage. So that's not the actual problem that it's referring to. Well, it's got that word,
Right.
those words in there. So it makes us think that, but the problem actually is with the cloud itself. So we got to solve what's going on with the cloud. And I know that, based on region, we've had issues accessing the cloud based on circadian rhythm, the time of day.
Okay.
People are having issues. So I would love to solve yours, and come up with the why, because, knowing why.
I've been unable to sync anything for like 15 days.
Okay.
For this, with this issue. And I've tried turning off the Bluetooth, and I've tried it through data, and I've tried doing it manually, and, letting it go. And I keep getting the same error. So obviously I'm concerned that, my data is not being backed up to the cloud.
Yeah.
So that's why I brought this up.
So let's go into your app for a second and look at the settings. So we have some settings in the app, under our settings page under cloud settings. And under cloud settings, we can have auto sync turned on. We can have client information synced to the cloud. We can have use cellular data on, all that kind of stuff. What I recommend to folks, now the auto sync function, if you have that turned on, remember every time you open the app, that auto sync is going to try to do its job.
Right. I turned it off.
So good. So if I want everybody to know that if it's turned on, that function is going to attempt to do that job while you're trying to do a scan. So let's say you're trying to do a scan, try to input a client, whatever you're trying to do, on top of that action is in the background, this syncing going on.
Right.
And it may not be convenient. You may not have the bandwidth. You may not have the connection that's going to allow this. And if there's any error that happens between that syncing function in the background, it's going to show up in the foreground. So you're in the midst of trying to input a client, and boom, all of a sudden there's a connection error or storage error or whatever error. And you're going, wait a minute, I haven't even said send yet, right? Well, that's because that auto sync is turned on. So I have mine turned off so that I can, and like Dawn does, I have mine turned off so that I can control when that happens. And I want to let you know, don't forget to do that, and do it in a time, maybe do it every day, but in a time in which you're not going to be doing anything else with that Blue Dot app, and let it do its job. So that's the thing. The having that little tab on that says use cellular data, have that turned on also. If you are comfortable with that, in fact, that you have a cellular package that has enough data that you're not going to, it's not going to cost you money if you're worried about that. So make sure that that's okay, but have it on, because the system will automatically switch from Wi-Fi to cell data if one is better than the other.
Right.
So that's a good thing to have on.
Yeah.
All right. So those are all good. Now, at the bottom of the screen, there are two sync functions. One is full synchronization, and then just backup data from the cloud. So will either one of those manual functions work for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I get the same error on either one. Or sometimes I click full sync, nothing happens.
Say that again.
Sometimes if I click on full synchronization, nothing will happen. I won't get the little line at the bottom saying that there's something going on. And then if I click on the other one, upload data, all data to the cloud, it'll, start, and then it kicks itself out of it. And then I get the same, message about unable to connect and insufficient storage, etc.
Okay. All right. So I would like to look at that one. That one sounds like an error message that that is an incorrect message, but it's saying that message based on proper information it's getting. But I would like to see where it's getting that information. It's improper information because you've got plenty of storage within your hardware, and we're not going to overload our client cloud account with Healy. You can have 100 clients and you're not going to overload that storage. So how many clients do you actually have?
Maybe 20.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that much yet.
No. I had hundreds of clients, and it's like, and then with each client, you've got dozens of lists, right? And still, you're not going to run out of data storage in the cloud. Now, like I said, it doesn't mean that message. Remember, when we're looking at technology, and I like your statement, Mary, technology is serving me. Make sure that we have that intention within us, because if you understand technology, it's very, very low power information transmission. And we have enough power to override and influence that transmission. So it's important to know that that's a possibility. Also know that there are defaults programmed into everything. And Healy has a lot of defaults. I think these error messages, and again, this is just my speculation because I don't have all their codes, all of their programming coding, but just based on what I'm seeing, I see that there's a lot of defaults that that can be mistriggered. Okay, mistriggered. In other words, there could be a time of day in which there's a lot of access to the cloud, and it trigger a certain fault or an error that's not correct. So, but I want to unpack yours a little bit more, Dawn, and it may take me, it may take some thinking on that, and you and I bringing yours online and see what we can do. I would like to see your settings on that smart device. In other words, the allocations for the app, and because you're not a new user, you you've had success in the operations with the Blue Dot app. You've had it working on multiple devices. Are you able to use it on any of your devices, your Blue Dot?
No. Oh, I mean the Blue. Yeah, I can use the Blue Dot app. I just can't sync anything.
Okay, so will it sync on your phone?
No.
Okay. So it's something, it sounds like it's something characteristic to your account, or the cloud account thinks is characteristic to your account. Now remember that not just Healy, but everywhere in the world, things can get turned off.
Yeah.
You know, have you ever had like your Netflix turned off weird for some reason or whatever? You know what I'm saying? It's like things like that happen. And then we call the customer service, say, hey, what's going on? And they fix it for us. Well, we don't have the customer service. I guess that's what we're doing right here.
Right.
So we got to figure that out. And that's going to take a little more investigation that I don't have an answer for you right now.
Okay, that's fine. I just am glad that I was able to discuss it with you directly, because I think other people have had this problem, because I have heard, you know, through our different meetings that the same people, or a number of people have gotten the same error message. So that's why I wanted to determine whether it's my devices or if it's, you know, the syncing to the cloud.
Yep.
You know, something, you know, wonky there. So,
It's something unique to your account. So not necessarily a device, but your account, whether it be access to your account in the cloud, like something got turned off or shifted or changed, you know, in migration. Healy is continuously upgrading the back office, the cloud access, the software, everything. And so I don't know if any of you've accidentally in the Blue Dot app seen 3 choices for scanning: the Resonance, the Healy, and the Aura. Okay, so those sometimes they show up, right? And well, that's where Healy's playing with the beta side of the system, but they forgot to switch over. And so some of the accounts wind up getting influenced by their beta testing. And what's happening behind the scenes is amazing. I mean, some of the stuff that they can do is like, what? And so we accidentally get a sneak preview. Well, it could be that some accounts are turned off accidentally again. And we got it. So here's what I recommend. Put in a ticket on this.
Okay.
If you haven't already,
No,
put in a ticket on this with the screenshots.
Okay.
And here's why: because these tickets are being analyzed, data collection, to try to solve things ahead of time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's important, right?
Okay.
So put in that ticket. All right.
Okay, thank you, Mary and Ken. I
Yes.
appreciate it.
Don't thank me, thank Ken. So I have a question. I know it's happened to me. I know it's happened to a lot of us, where you'll be in the middle of, I don't know, running Bach, Materia Medica, and all of a sudden it stops and you have to go back. And I know, I forget who asked this question. A couple of people did. So where the screens just, you know, they go blah. And I think maybe you've addressed it in some of the other things that you've shared about what else is going on. So,
So those codes, yeah, you might see on their screen some odd coding and stuff, or even just an error, a blank screen.
Mhm.
All of that again is communications, and you know, there's not like a workaround. There's not a workaround. It's a reset thing. And these are more software things that are being worked on to try to improve the integrity of communications. And when I say communications, the integrity of the communications with the cloud. So there's expansions going on all the time, and these little glitches that we get, I get them too. And what my workaround is shut it down, go through that sequencing again, and start over. And it's a bit frustrating because you were in the midst of something you were running. Luckily, that list is still available. Now, here's another glitch that's happening: is some of these lists are disappearing. Within the client list, they're disappearing, or some of the analysis are changing the order. Some of the orders are being changed. So you do an analysis, you get a specific order of recommendations of programs, and then you go back to run that same one and you see the order is different. And I've seen this, and I've had it firsthand with people I'm working with. And I've also noticed that when I run a certain sequence with someone, I run that vibration into their field, and then maybe I run the second order and vibration. By the time I get to the third one, the order has changed. Now, this is an intelligent AI system. So the first two things I ran shifted the order or the necessity of the third, right? So, so I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that what was necessary in the moment in which we did the first scan is no longer necessary 2 days later. So some of that shifting can happen due to what's needed. Healy doesn't give you what you don't need. So, but some of it could be a glitch. If they're disappearing, is that the AI wiping them out because you've done the work, or is it a glitch? Stay tuned. We don't know.
Right. I have a question also. And I have several subscriptions, is the subscription attached to a serial number, or is it driven by email password?
If it's one that requires a serial number, it's attached to a serial number.
Okay, so you can't use it on multiple devices.
Nope. And there's a reason for that, because the ones that are attached to a serial number are interacted with by a Healy advisor. A Healy advisor
Correct.
is the umbrella that collects all the data, allocates all of the tasks, and interacts with all of the frequencies. So the Healy advisor, not the Healy advisor analysis, which is the blue dot. The Healy advisor is the app with the wiggly lines.
Yes.
Okay. So that is the umbrella account in which you live and all your apps live, and all the integrations between the watch information, between the DNA information, all of that is integrated in one house, in one place, so that they can best serve you in terms of your needs through one portal, AKA one serial number. So if you have multiple serial numbers, there's communications between a watch and a particular Healy hardware. And that needs to be integrous. Otherwise, it's because the watch information, and they do this, they put this blanketly across all devices because of one app, the watch, because the watch is a collective piece of information that gives a analysis over time. And that happens within the Healy advisor, and it's attached to one serial number. If we switch to a different Healy, remember I told you about the one Healy in a certain house of that app. You know, who was the last guy in my house? It has to do a new handshaking, new information. It's cleared. There's no history now from the watch integration with the Healy. And it doesn't have a track record to give you proper information when it's trying to track your sleep cycle, trying to understand the goals in terms of weight loss or nutrition or whatever. All of that's accumulative data over time. So they have to, when you're building a program, there's certain things you have to program for in the equation. They have to stay consistent. And one of those consistencies is one Healy. That's one. If you look at the cloud integration, you'll see the Healy as the hub, and everything else is the spokes to all the other integrations. So that's why one serial number is relevant to the apps.
Well, good to know for future, so that I have them all at least collectively in the same on the same device. Okay.
People are asking me all the time, hey, can more than one person use the watch, and can more than one, because why? Well, we want to spend very little and do very much, right? And the answer is, this whole thing was designed to improve the health and welfare of one body.
Yep.
Right? So everything's built around that equation, not for greed purposes, but for efficacy and for efficiency, and for for effect, right?
Well, I made an assumption just because, as you know, you can have the app on up to 5 devices. So, but good. I was thinking you could do that. So, all right. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see. Um, I know that there are people that have pink dot issues, but I think based on time here, we've been on for a good while. And I want people to like refer back to this. And sometimes people don't because they're so lengthy, but
Well, we might be able to do a pink dot specialty. This was a blue dot specialty, right? A lot of folks are having an issue with that. And the ones that are looking for blue dot answers, I think this would be a good one. We could do a pink dot specialty and just have that as the understanding, because you're right. We can spend hours, as you see. I'll also for you guys to write down this web address. It is mydevicehelp.com. So mydevicehelp.com. That is a pointer that will take you to the YouTube channel. And Stephen Keller and I did 5 hours of video, what was it? 2.5 hours, I think, on the pink dot and 3 hours on the blue dot. And then they are hyperlinked, segregated. So there's hyperlinks there. If you click on the down arrow under the information of the video, there's hyperlinks that you can, with subject information, that it will tell you certain pieces. You can just go to that particular area instead of watching the entire thing, or you can get a bag of popcorn and binge watch and listen to the whole thing. But the point is there as a resource for you. And our goal is to add more pieces to that. So, but we can do another pink dot recording when you want.
no, this was excellent. I was trying to scroll through there are a lot of questions that can be addressed with, and I just put the link in there, mydevicehelp.com. And I'll be transparent. It's so much easier to ask someone for help. And it's really pushed me to be a lot more involved in learning about this amazing device. And there's days when I just have to freaking walk away from it. And I'm not kidding. The next day I'll, close my eyes and go, please, please, please. I know it sounds hocus pocus. It's not, and it works. So there's just so much to learn. It's such a sophisticated piece of device and a piece of equipment. And Ken, thank you so much. I would love to do another one.
Okay. We'll do it. When we'll set that aside, put that into the field. We'll create that, just let everybody know. We had, over 60 people here today, which is great. And I know this wasn't really a Q&A thing, but I really wanted to unpack some basics. And I've been a martial arts instructor for decades, and I teach principles. Principles will always help us overcome some of the current conditions, as long as we understand the principles. And communication is very important here when we're working with Healy. So that's a big deal that we need to pay attention to. And don't always blame the Healy. There are things that we need to understand. And I'm just like you. I started from zero when I was introduced to this. I had to tool up, and there is a emotional phenomenon called the infant syndrome, where we want to ask because it's easier to ask, hey honey, where's my pants, as opposed to go and look for my pants, right? It's like, it's so easy to ask a question, but when we go and dig in, it's unpredictable as to what we will learn as a side effect of digging into just our one question. When we are able to research and dig in and answer our one question, the peripheral benefit that winds up being accumulated from that is enormous. Now, I want to honor you guys because you guys push me another level. Now, Dawn, I want to thank you because now I got something new that to try to discover, right? And I will do that, because that will carry with me into my sleep. It will carry with me into my day. It will carry with me forever until it's solved, because that's who I am with the universal energy. I'm the teacher. And so So I want to thank you guys for the opportunity, and Dawn especially too, for one that's going to challenge me, and we'll solve it. We'll solve it.
Interestingly enough, while we were talking, I logged out of my account and I logged back in. And just now I was trying to connect my Healy and it says it's not activated. So, and please contact customer support. So I know we can activate it ourselves. I've got to go look for that video.
But you see, I want you guys to take into account the principle here. We understand that by the messaging, we can look at the principle, meaning that there was something up with her account, right? Which is what I said before. And it was a mistake. You know, Healy makes a mistake, shut off somebody's account, or something gets lost in translations when they're doing upgrades, and suddenly Dawn's experiencing the aftermath. So this is great, right? I mean, I know that now that will be solved because customer service, or you do it from your own back office. We now have that ability. But if it doesn't work in the back office, customer service will solve this for you and you'll be back up and running.
Okay. Hopefully soon.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
All right, guys.
I know we'll want to post this somewhere. So however you want to send it, and we'll get it added to our pages. And
Yep. You and I will work that out and we'll get it.
much. I learned a ton. Thank you.
My pleasure. You know, I had the Healy memory program running the whole time. So if I was a little more brilliant than normal, I love my Healy. That's it.
Regeneration right now. I love those programs. Oh my gosh.
All right, you guys. I love you all. Thank you all for bringing this to the table.
Thank you.
And we'll get it out to you. So for now, have a great day.
Thank you again.
Bye, everyone.
Hey, good. Thanks, Larry. See you, Dawn.
Bye.
Bye, Johnson.
Love everybody. Love Healy.
Love Barry.
Thank you.
Bye.